on the eve of my 47th birthday, I had a dream. And I didn't remember any of the details when I woke up, but I remembered the message of it. And it was this very strong sensation and specific words. And it was, all is love. Love is all there is. The next day, my husband and I were going for a walk on a street we normally didn't walk on. And there on a light pole was a Post-it note. And you guessed it, it said, all is love. Love is all there is. I'm Sandy Miodo-Gugis with Profound Way. And today I want to talk to you about loving kindness meditation, or metta in the ancient language of Pali from India. Why this matters is because we have so much fear and anger in our culture right now. And we're prone to it in our personal lives as well. Somebody does something and we consider that they're against us in some way, and so we're all mad. And there's nothing wrong with setting boundaries. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is not taking it personally and being able to still feel a certain kindness toward the person. The example I'm going to use here is my ex-husband at two different points in our lives. First was our divorce. I really hated him. I hated him more than I had ever hated another human being. The man didn't just break my heart. I felt like he had broken me, broken my trust in humanity, you name it, right? It was very dramatic. And I learned this meditation, loving kindness. For the first 30 days, I decided to try this meditation. I did 20 minutes or so a day. I only directed loving kindness toward myself because I was so hurt and so broken. And I just needed some kind of a healing balm. And then over time, I was able to include him in the practice. And after about a year of doing this practice toward him, directing loving thoughts toward him, I was talking to a mutual friend of ours. And he said, so do you still hate him? And I said, well, if he were crossing the street in front of me, I would not change lanes in order to run him over. But neither would I change lanes in order to miss him. So that's where I was at the 1 year mark, right? And that was a lot of progress. When I first started doing the practice with him, it was with clenched teeth and raised shoulders, wishing these good things for him. But in time, it helped. I was not one of those divorcees who 20 years out was still bitter. I was able to let go of my attachments to what I thought should have happened in my life and move on. And the other time that this comes up with my ex is when he died a couple of years ago. And I had all kinds of weird emotions about that. I had loved him for over 10 years. I had hated him for at least one. And then, I felt kind of neutral toward him for the 26, 25 since then. And, didn't think about him horribly often. We did exchange greetings generally twice a year, Christmas and our birthdays, which are both in June. It's on Facebook Messenger. Hey, happy birthday, thinking of you, something like that. And sometimes we'd miss, and that was it. That was the only contact I'd had with him in a long time. But because of all that loving kindness practice that I had done toward him in the early days of our divorce, I was able to actually grieve him. I didn't love him anymore, and he wasn't the man I married. By the time we got divorced, he was no longer the man I had married. Changing, always changing all the time. You are not the person that your spouse married either, even if you got married last week. That's just how it is. But I was still able to acknowledge that he was a human being, that he was at that point a father, and that there were things he was going to miss because he had passed. He died shortly before Christmas, and he loved Christmas. And I felt a sadness. It's like, I wish he could have just had that one more Christmas. And that was the work of the loving kindness, that I was able to grieve the loss of a human being, even though we'd had a lot of problems. And even though I had at one point wished him dead. That's how loving kindness has worked in my life. So what is it? What is this practice? With loving kindness, you are basically sending a wish out to the universe for all good things for other people. There's different translations of this, but here's the ones that I'm going to share with you. And let's start with ourselves. May I be well. May I be happy. May I know love. May I know peace. Pretty simple, pretty basic. We wish those things for ourselves. In the Buddhist tradition, we start with the self. Back when the Buddha lived, ideas of depression and self-loathing hadn't really made it into the popular consciousness. And so we thought, oh, it'd be easy to start with the self. Now we know it's not always easy to start with the self. But I still encourage you to do so. Wish yourself these things. And if you think, well, I'm not worthy, yes, you are. I am here to tell you, yes, you are. Feel free to wish yourself these good things. And if it's still really difficult for you, wish your baby self these good things. I can wish baby Sandy happiness, right? If I think grown-up Sandy is too much of a and doesn't deserve happiness, which I don't, by the way, but if I did, I could wish baby Sandy happiness. So that's a little workaround for you. So those are the types of things that we wish for ourselves and for others. And we start with the self, again, because the thought was that was the easiest one. If it isn't, I give you permission to skip it and circle back to it at the end. But the next one is someone that you love. The Buddha called this a benefactor. Maybe your parents, if they're good parents, or whoever was instrumental in raising you, maybe alongside your parents or instead of. I have several aunts and uncles I would put in here as well as my parents. So I have lots of people that I would consider that I really love and they were benefactors. Just pick one, okay? In the moment when you do the practice, just pick one. Do not sit there and think about who should I pick, because the point is to train your brain and to train your heart to open it to love, to expand your heart. It doesn't matter. This person is like a placeholder and will catch everybody else up later at the end. Trust me. So pick one. First one to come to mind, that's your person. Then we move on to the friend, someone that we like a lot, maybe even love, but not quite as much as the benefactor. And by the way, any of these people can have passed away already, and that's perfectly fine to still direct loving kindness toward them. Now we get to the friend level. Maybe this is a pet. I don't put the pet in as a benefactor, typically speaking, because I haven't found that to be a good fit for me personally, but maybe you do. But sometimes my dog Gracie is in my friend position, and that's fine. Then we move on to a neutral person. Someone you see, maybe you interact with a little bit, but you haven't really talked to. I was at my local postage store the other day, a little mail center, mailing back a return package that didn't work out. The lady there is really nice and chatty, and the man didn't really talk with us at all. I know nothing about him. The woman I already like. I've had, one conversation with her and I already have a good feeling about her. But the guy, I have no feelings about one way or the other because we didn't really interact, although I saw him and he was there. And he said, you'll have to wait for her. I don't think he called her wife. Just, you'll need to wait for her. Like, okay, that's all he said to me. So he's a good neutral person for me to use. Maybe you could use your letter carrier or the person who checks out your groceries. But it's someone that you don't have a lot of emotional energy around either way. You can wish them well. It costs you nothing. There's an infinite amount of happiness in the universe. May they be happy. It's all good. Someone like that. Now, here's where the rubber meets the road in this practice. Now we're going to go to a difficult person. The Buddha called this person the enemy. Well, in his day, his tribe of people, the Shakya clan, had ancestral enemies among other clans. Hopefully your family isn't like that and you don't have any ancestral blood feuds and you don't have any enemies. But it can be someone who it's challenging for you to like. For me, it was my ex-husband. And this is the time when I'm thinking to myself, or maybe I'm saying out loud, may he be well, and my jaw is clenching. May he be happy, and my shoulders are creeping up. May he know love, and I'm just like, why couldn't he love me? May he know peace, and now my shoulders are all the way up to my ears and my jaw's clenched so tight I'm about to have a migraine. So that took a while to work through. And I'll give you some tips on this. Again, think of them as a baby or just younger, before they did the thing that hurt you. I could think of him on our wedding day. He hadn't done those things yet. And I couldn't imagine that he ever would. And no one who knew us could ever imagine that he would do the things that led to our divorce. That person, I could still send the love to. And eventually I got to where I could send it to him at the age he was at the time. Back to this idea that happiness is not a zero-sum game. There's plenty of it to go around. So someone else's happiness does not diminish yours. And next, if the person, the difficult person in your life, if they were well, if they were happy, if they had love and peace in their life, maybe they wouldn't be such a jerk. Maybe they would be better in their other relationships, even if you no longer have a relationship with them. That's something to consider. When I was doing this for Butthead, as I referred to my ex, I thought of him as a dad. I wanted him to be able to be a good dad. If he had all of these blessings in his life, then he could parent his children effectively. At that point, he only had the one parent his child effectively. It's not the kid's fault. So that made it easier for me to work with that. Now, here's the other thing with any of these positions. You can use people you've never met. You can use people who are like world political leaders. There is the story of the ancient Indian king who was quite the conqueror, and then he had a religious experience, ended up converting to Buddhism, and stopped being a conqueror. It was a very peaceful king for the rest of his reign. Then the last one we're going to do is for all beings everywhere, without one exception. And this is the bucket that catches all of our benefactors. We only focused on one. All the rest of them are in here. All the rest of our friends are here. All the rest of the neutral people and beings that we've never met, never will, are here. All the rest of the difficult and challenging people throughout our lives are here. All beings everywhere. We wish them these wonderful things. Now, if you skipped yourself at the beginning, come back to yourself. Or you can come back to yourself a second time at the end and use that as a nice bookend to the practice. There's two reasons why this practice is extremely helpful. First is because it shifts the needle slightly in the energetic field that exists in the universe. This is the woo, or in Buddhism, we say that this is the absolute world. In the realm of the absolute, there's a lot of energy. There's no differentiation between you and me. We're all connected in ways we don't even understand. So on that level, we can shift that energy one meditation at a time and start to help improve the quality of life everywhere. On the relative level, as it's known in Buddhism, or on the scientific level, I'm going to rewire my brain. I am going to increase the number of neurons firing in the pathway that promotes happy thoughts. Every time you think about something for 15 or 20 seconds, your brain creates additional pathways and makes those pathways smoother because it doesn't want to work so hard. Our bodies are amazing organisms, and they recognize that there's a shortcut here and I'm going to take it so I don't have to work as hard in the future. So if you have a lot of negative self-talk, it gets easier and easier to have that negative self-talk. And if you do loving kindness meditation, it gets easier and easier to have loving thoughts for all people everywhere without one exception. Two reasons to practice this: the woo and the science, the absolute and the relative. However you want to frame these things in your mind, it's all good. We're going to do it just for ourselves. If you are able to do this, if you're in the car, don't do this. If you feel comfortable doing so, close your eyes. If not, just gaze down softly. You don't need to watch me. I'm not going to be doing anything interesting. Let's take a deep breath and let it out slowly. Let's do another one. And as you do this, feel your shoulders relaxing. One more, and let any other tension you notice relax. Now repeat after me, either aloud or in your mind. May I be well. May I be happy. May I know love. May I know peace. Take another deep breath. And as you let it out, you can open your eyes, bring your attention back to the outside world. It's that simple. So I hope that you will give this a try. It is one of the most popular meditations in the world. It is the very first one that I ever learned, and I still find myself doing it multiple times a week, either for myself, for others, or the whole sequence. I can't recommend it highly enough. So that's loving kindness meditation. Please add it to your toolkit and have a fabulous day. See you next time.